Lord of Mystery. The Return of the Stars Chapter 161–170. Secretly collecting information. Hastur's first reaction was the Aurora Society where Mr. A belonged and the yellow-robed monks lurking in the dark. These two organizations have been paying special attention to themselves since they were born, and it is reasonable for them to secretly collect information about themselves. Don't you think it's strange at all? Marge couldn't understand why Hastur could look so calm. Normally, shouldn't he be curious and shocked? It's strange. Who is collecting my information? Your reaction is a bit too fake. Is it so obvious? Hastur smiled and shook the wine glass on the table. The dark red liquid swirled along the wall of the glass several times. We guess those people should belong to the witch sect, Sharon said, looking at Hastur with a bit of curiosity and scrutiny. Witch cult? Hastur was stunned for a moment. What was the good witch sect doing to collect his information? I haven't asked them for the assassin potion formula yet. Marge said in a teasing tone. Tisk, Hastur, it's normal for you to look like this to attract people from the witch sect. I heard that they just like young and handsome men. Marge, are you jealous of me? Marge snorted softly and shut up. He was not that stupid to discuss this topic with Hastur. Let Sharon do the talking. Sharon said in a very calm tone. The witch sect has always been synonymous with disaster and despair. It will never be a good thing for them to find you. Maybe they just think I'm good looking. It's possible. After all, you only have this skin left. Hastur thought it was better not to talk too much in front of Sharon, otherwise she would stab her heart every time. After sorting out his thoughts, Asta said sternly. I have not had any contact with people from the witch sect. The only one who is more likely is Mrs. Germani. Someone told me that she has some connections with the witch sect. Marge couldn't help but interrupt. Asta, it turns out you are attracted by a noble lady. This is a kind of distress. Marge, you are not me. You don't understand what kind of painful experience this is. Marge wanted to slap himself in the face, but why did he talk to him like this? Aren't you nobles always very open in this regard? Sharon's tone was as calm as ever. Those are other nobles. I have always kept myself clean and have never messed around with men and women. Well, I have mysophobia. Hastur felt that he needed to clear his name to avoid being misunderstood. That's not a problem we need to worry about. You can take care of it yourself. If I am really in danger, I will ask you for help. I may not have time. Sharon, you are so heartless. Sharon's face was calm, her blue eyes glanced at Hastur, and she said no more. In a luxurious villa. In a luxuriously decorated room. The bustling room became calm again. You seem particularly enthusiastic tonight, you go? Tisk, that's a bit too heartless. It's often said that when a man pulls up his trousers, he won't recognize you, and it seems the same goes for a woman when she puts on a skirt. I didn't ask you to come, you came to me yourself. Forget it, I'm too lazy to argue with you on this issue. Recently I asked someone to find out about Baron Campbell. He's not bad, he looks very exciting. There was silence in the room for a while, and then an angry voice sounded. I don't need you to interfere in my private life. I'm just out of curiosity and don't have many other ideas. But you can't even get a little man. Can your charm only attract those old men with big bellies? Oh, I forgot. You were determined not to embark on the path of a witch at the beginning. Now, do you regret your innocence in the past? Roll. Ha ha ha. You're actually angry. You actually wavered in your past determination because of a man. You should still remember our family's admonition. Witches die of love. I don't need you to remind me, I'm just afraid that you will embark on a path of no return. After all, I am your sister. After a pleasant chuckle, the window opened. A figure walked away from the window, and then the window was closed again. Baron Hasta Campbell. The Hall of Stars. Hastur sat at the head of the long table. His eyes swept over the bright stars, and finally landed on the stars of the high-dimensional overlookers. The high-dimensional overlooker who had been staying with Adam was now embarking on his own journey again. His direction was very random, and there was no overly clear purpose. At this moment, he was raising a bonfire in the wild, and he was also leisurely collecting many thick and tough vines to build a fairly flat vine bed between two big trees. He tested the strength of the new bed, and after confirming that it could support his weight, he turned over and lay on the bed, looking up at the stars. Leisurely and cozy. This made Hasta, who had been observing him, couldn't help but sigh. He really looks like an ordinary human being, not at all the scary side of the outer god in the past. After watching for a while, Hasta finally resisted the urge to strike with the whip, looked away, and took another look at the star where the true creator and Adam were. Now Aurora is so active in looking for believers of the stars. This is definitely from the instruction of the real creator. Since the other party wants to find him, if he has nothing to do in the future, he will come to observe him for a while. This time Ouroboros is no longer with the real creator, he should be out doing things. Could he run to Backland again? Now even Will can't sense him? Ouroboros should not be able to detect his abnormality. After staring for a while, Hasta also glanced at Adam. He still stayed in the church, not praying devoutly, but looking out the window, not at the starry sky, but at the distance. When will Adam hold a dusk hermit meeting? Hasta is looking forward to the arrival of this day, when he can see how powerful this organization is. After observing for a while, he retracted his gaze. After a short rest, he began to spy on fate, about the assassin potion formula. The person who appeared in the picture is Madame Germani. This is a revelation of fate. This is the same as what Will recommended, both are relatively quick ways. But he really didn't want to get involved with someone like Madame Germani. Wait a little longer. Hasta was not very anxious about the assassin potion formula. Cut off the connection with the Hall of Stars, go offline and go to sleep. Late at night, the wind outside the window suddenly accelerated, and the wind chimes hanging in front of the window in the study made a few crisp bell sounds. Hasta, who had already fallen asleep, woke up from his deep sleep. He subconsciously turned over and held the cane lying horizontally beside the bed. His eyes changed from being drowsy at the beginning to being sharp and alert. The spirit was reminding him that someone was approaching. Since Mr. A came to his house in the middle of the night last time, he had experience. In order to prevent someone from coming in through the window in the middle of the night while he was still sleeping, Hasta left a small warning on the window. Once the breath of a Beander approached, it would give an alarm. This was a little trick he learned from the Church of Steam and Mechanics after stealing the Black Emperor card last time. For him who can make rules, this is not a difficult task. Holding the cane, he just changed from lying on the bed to half squatting on the bed, and did not choose to get out of bed to open the window. Whoosh, snap, snap. A strong wind blew and 2 windows were knocked open. The wind blew into the bedroom, making the things inside make a rustling sound. Fortunately, there was nothing valuable, so even if it was blown to the ground and broken, Hasta would not feel bad. You are very alert. A charming and somewhat cold voice was accompanied by a strong wind and poured into the room. Hasta did not answer the other party, got up from the half-squatting position, got off the bed, and pulled out the sword and the cane, but did not move rashly. After all, he didn't know who was coming now. Listening to this voice, it should not be Mr. A who has changed sex, but maybe a Beander of the witch cult. They are really brave, running to Queens in the middle of the night to knock on the window of a noble. Hee hee, little man, do you want to see me? This time the voice has come from the window to the room, just in a shadow above the window. Hasta glanced around, and it was pitch black, and he couldn't see anything. Invisibility as an assassin? Hasta's mouth curled up slightly, and he was also a master of invisibility, and it was no less than showing off his skills in front of an expert. Slowly opening his spiritual vision, he saw a graceful figure above the window, lying upside down on the ceiling, looking down at him like a spider. She was wearing a black long dress with red lace on the hem, and she looked a bit like Madame Germani, but their eyebrows and eyes were completely different. Madame Germani had a style of wanting to say something but not being able to, while this one was charming and affectionate, with eyes that were straight and moving. I don't want to see someone who can only sneak around. As Hasta spoke, he came to the side and lit a beautifully shaped table lamp. The light was not too dazzling, but it was enough to dispel the darkness in the room. The figure on the ceiling, relying on its invisible state, came silently above his head, like a giant spider preparing to pounce on its food. Hasta held the sword in his staff and secretly turned the tip of the sword. If the other party pounced directly on him, he would let her know what it means to be chilled to the bone. You are so handsome. I don't know how many innocent girls you will harm in the future. I think I should kill you to prevent another ignorant girl from being depressed because of you. The voice was still full of charm. The words that were originally shouting for fighting and killing came out of her mouth, and there was a bit of charm. The thread was piercing and it was heart-wrenching. In this regard, Asta's evaluation was not bad, a bit of the essence of the fox spirit in the gods and ghosts, but still too immature, need to practice more. If it was the white Saint Katerina, her charm would never be so obvious, but in normal communication, she would capture your body and soul unconsciously. You want to kill me? What to kill me with? Your beauty or your body? Asta's indifferent words were a little disdainful, which made Maraka, who was lying on the ceiling, sneer at the corner of his mouth. She turned slightly and stared at Hastur's defenseless back of the neck. With just a close approach, her nails could penetrate his skin, tear his muscles, and then twist his neck with a little force. Of course, she didn't mind giving him a bloody kiss before he died completely. Originally, she just wanted to come and take a look, but when she really saw this Baron Hasta Campbell, she couldn't control the flames of jealousy in her heart. That feeling was like a fire burning every corner of her body. So, she changed her mind. She wanted to kill this young and handsome nobleman and dig out his heart. If this heart was given to her as a gift, what kind of picture would it be? But when she was about to act, she had a strong sense of foreboding and danger in her heart. It was as if the defenseless prey below was opening a huge net waiting for her to fall into the trap. She decided to be careful. I'm a little shy, can you turn off the light first? Okay. With a promise, the lights went out and the room fell into darkness again. This level of darkness has no concealing effect on a witch who used to be an assassin. Lie down on the bed first, I'll come to you and take you into the world of pleasure. Maraka flipped her right wrist, and a 2-finger-wide dagger appeared. With the weapon, she could ensure that she could cut the throat of the prey below in an instant, even the skin and bones. You talk too much nonsense. Are you here to seduce me to bed or to talk to me late at night? The rude words made Maraka stunned for a moment, and then she was angry. She no longer waited, no longer hesitated, her body fell lightly like a fallen leaf, her waist turned slightly half a circle, and the dagger in her hand drew a cold light and slashed towards Hastur's throat. Puff! It was the sound of flesh being pierced by a sharp weapon. But it was not her dagger that cut the prey's throat, but the sword in the prey's hand that pierced her lower abdomen accurately. At the same time, the sword that penetrated her abdomen twisted it hard and cut her internal organs. Ah! A scream came out of her mouth uncontrollably, and at the same time she hurriedly pulled away, jumped into the shadow, and rushed out through the window, landing on the grass on the ground as nimbly as a fallen leaf. The palm of her left hand covered the pierced lower abdomen, and the icy power flowed and spread, sealing the wound and preventing a large amount of blood from flowing out. Maraka was panting heavily, not daring to stay any longer, and hurriedly ran along the street. From the upstairs window, Asta looked at the direction of her panicked escape, and did not jump directly from the window. With his physique, if he wanted to jump from the window, the 2 stained glass windows would basically be broken again, and these were all money. Moreover, relying on the speed of the flesh alone, it was impossible for him to catch up with this extraordinary person of the witch sect of unknown origin. After all, she was once an assassin known for her dexterity. After determining the direction in which the witch fled, Hastur closed the window, returned to the bed, and his spirit left his body. He rolled up the war emblem and chased after her. In the dark streets and alleys, Maraka ran away like a stray dog, her body blending into the shadows at a very fast speed. The howling wind blew past her ears, and she finally regained some composure. She couldn't figure out why her carefully prepared attack failed to kill the other party, but was stabbed by the other party first. That person should not be able to see where she is. This is the invisibility ability that only Sequence 7 witches have. How could it suddenly fail? I can't figure it out. After running a long distance, Maraka looked back and didn't see anyone chasing her. She breathed a sigh of relief and stopped. She looked down at her abdomen. The ice there had gradually melted, and blood mixed with ice water flowed out, staining her black lace skirt red. This was her favorite long dress. She chose to wear it because tonight was a special day, but now it was stained with blood. She looked at it for a while, reached out to touch the flowing blood, then spread it around and put it in her mouth to taste it. It tasted a little sweet, but more fishy. She didn't like it very much, she only liked sweet blood. After calming down a little, she used ice to freeze the wound and planned to bandage the wound when she got home. Well, she didn't go back to her own home, but to her good sister's home. Let her see what a painful price he paid for her. Should she feel sorry for her miserable situation, or just mock? What an interesting question. Maraka changed direction and staggered forward. After a few steps, she was filled with panic and despair. She subconsciously rolled on the dirty ground, and saw a big sword slashing down where she was just now. If she hadn't dodged in time, the golden sword would have split her most proud body in two. Is it that Baron Hasta Campbell who is chasing after her? Before Maraka could find Hasta's figure, the golden sword turned in a direction and slashed down at her. She had nowhere to escape, so she closed her eyes and prepared to meet her fate. Hey, interesting. A familiar voice sounded in her ears. Maraka opened her eyes. The golden sword in front of her had disappeared, and she was held in someone's arms. She didn't need to look up, she knew who came to save her. In Backland, only her mother could show up in time and save her at the critical moment. Maraka felt her chin being pinched and lifted up, and she was faced with a face that looked a bit like hers, and almost exactly the same as her sister's. You are really useless. Disdainful tone, emotionless eyes. Maraka's anger surged in her heart, and she said coldly, "Haha, I didn't beg you to save me." Pa. As soon as the words fell, she was slapped to the ground, and her beloved red dress was stained by the mud and sewage on the ground. If you were not my daughter, you would have died countless times. Can you still have the opportunity to be presumptuous in front of me? Maraka just wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, then got up from the ground, said nothing, and walked forward on her own. Childish confrontation. The voice from behind did not stop Maraka, and she still staggered forward. Who did you offend tonight? Do you care about this issue? He can avoid the tracking of my incarnation. He is not an ordinary Beander. Maraka was silent for a while before slowly saying, a noble, Baron Hasta Campbell. In the room, Asta's spirit chose to return from the Hall of Stars and merge into his body. It was really thrilling. Asta sat up straight and wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Just now, when he was about to kill the witch tonight with a sword, his spirit suddenly gave a crazy warning. He did not hesitate and left the place directly. But the person who came out of his body with an illusory figure and chased him all the way. In order to avoid the illusory figure, he directly cut off the connection and let the spirit return to the Hall of Stars, and then returned to himself from the Hall of Stars. Asta could not help but feel fortunate that he chose to chase and kill as a spirit tonight, otherwise he would definitely not be able to get away safely. The person coming behind is at least a Sequence 4 demigod. Her image was not that of the White Saint Katerina, but another extraordinary person of the witch cult. Maybe she was also a powerful existence of Sequence 3. She obviously left some life-saving measures on the witch tonight, so when she sensed danger, she quickly shuttled through the spirit world. Alas, it's good to have someone to protect you. Asta sighed. It was a pity that he couldn't kill the witch tonight, even though the other party had already delivered it to his door. Good and bad are interdependent. If I kill her at home, it will definitely attract the pursuit of that powerful existence, and I will be in danger. The current situation is not good, but it is not too bad. It's just that during this period of time, I need Will's help to protect me. After thinking for a while, Asta came to the study, took down the whole string of wind chimes, took it back to the bedroom, and hung it in front of the bedroom window. In the past, he didn't want Will to keep peeping at him sleeping secretly, but now he can't care about it. He took down another paper crane and put it in the palm of his hand. He glanced at the time. It was a little after 4 o'clock in the morning. Do you know what time it is now? Will appeared in Haster's dream with a dark circle under his eyes, holding a brown and yellow big bear doll, and a look of disgust on his face. Emperor Russell said, "A year's plan lies in spring, and a day's plan lies in the morning." It's already past 4 in the morning, and those diligent children have already gotten up to study. You should also learn more." Will was silent for a while, wondering. Did Roussel ever say such a thing? Of course, are you looking down on Emperor Roussel, the greatest human mentor in history? Will glanced at Hastur, and didn't dwell on this question anymore. He snorted. "Tell me, what's the matter?" "Tonight, when I was chasing a Beander who should be a Sequence 7 witch, I met a powerful witch. She was not the White Saint Katerina." "Is it strange? Since there is a White Saint, there must be a Black Saint." "It makes sense." Hastur couldn't refute it for a while. "The witch sect is not simple. There are 3 saints named after colors. The 3 saints, red, white and black, are all immortal witches of Sequence 3. In addition, there are 2 disaster witches of Sequence 2 in the sect. The overall strength is no less than any of the 7 gods' churches." "Do other Orthodox churches have similar configurations?" "Mostly. Hasta now has a clearer understanding of the high-end combat power of the 7 gods' church. The one who came forward to stop me was the Black Saint. It should be her, after all. You have a special relationship with her daughter." "Mrs. Germani is her daughter?" "Yes. Including the little witch you are chasing tonight?" Hasta thought for a long time, and then asked curiously, "Why do witches always like to give birth to offspring?" "Hee, they can't stand loneliness. Especially these 3 immortal witches. They always like to fall in love with some young people, and even start enjoying physical pleasure as long as they fall in love. Once pregnant, they will never choose to kill the new life, but will quietly give birth to it and raise it alone. In this regard, they are much better than most people." Will said, staring at Hasta with a smile on his face, and said with a smile, "Have you ever considered having a child with a witch?" "No, and I won't. Tisk, don't refuse so bluntly. If you don't experience that kind of pleasure yourself, you will be so beautiful in vain." Hasta's forehead flashed with a black line, and he didn't want to talk about this topic with Will. "If the Black Saint comes to trouble me recently, you have to protect me. 100 ice creams, they must be the most expensive ones in the dessert shop on the corner of 4th Street in Queens. Aren't you afraid of having a stomachache after eating so much? I will go to the hospital for surgery in a few days, and I won't be able to eat ice cream for a while. Good luck to you." "I've always been lucky." After saying that, Will left Hasta's dream with the big bear doll in his arms. After getting Will's promise, Hasta felt much more relieved. The Black Saint is just a Sequence 3 immortal witch, while Will is a Sequence 1 Mercury serpent, and he controls fate. If you really want to kill the Black Saint, there are ways to do it. What surprised him tonight was that Mrs. Germani was actually the daughter of an immortal witch, but she was obviously not a Beander. This is really interesting. Speaking of which, the witch who came to assassinate him tonight was very strange. She probably didn't want to assassinate him at first, so she talked to him, but in the end, for some reason, she changed her mind. And she was not steady at all. She knew that he was not simple, but she dared to assassinate him directly. She was stabbed directly through. It was really stupid. And she was the daughter of an immortal witch, but she was only at Sequence 7, it was too bad. After secretly complaining a few words, Hester stopped thinking about these things. He looked at the time and it was almost 5 o'clock. After thinking about it, he went to take a bath first, and then took a nap. It was more than 10 o'clock in the morning when Hester got up from the bed. He looked at the wind chime hanging on the window and felt relieved. Obviously, he already lived in Queens, but there were still people who liked to knock on the window to visit him late at night. This was no different from living in the West District. "No, I must buy a property near the Holy Wind Church and the St. Samuel Church, so that I can have more places to live in the future." Hasta thought for a while before getting up from the bed, going to the bathroom to wash up, and then picking up Azishara, who had been squatting beside him and meowing non-stop. It was very clingy, especially when he woke up every morning. For example, this morning, he got up a little late, and Azishara called several times outside the door, and finally lay down at the door, waiting for him to wake up. Because of what happened last night, Hester chose to stay at home all day to avoid meeting the Black Saint as soon as he went out. Although she couldn't see the true identity of her spirit last night, she must have guessed that it was related to her. It's better to be careful. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a carriage drove to the door. The owner of the carriage did not get off, but sent someone to deliver a letter. As soon as Hasta saw the familiar envelope, he knew it was a letter from Mrs. Germani. "Come to the study and open the letter. Baron Hasta Campbell, please forgive me for writing to disturb you again. I have heard about what happened last night. Fortunately, you didn't have any accidents, otherwise I will be condemned by the flames for the rest of my life. I can't explain to you why all this happened, but I can promise that the same thing will not happen again. I swear on my life. After parting at the banquet of Lord Gregg, I made up my mind not to disturb your peaceful life again, but since the last encounter on the street, the hot emotions that I suppressed bitterly erupted again and could no longer be suppressed back to the bottom of my heart. I know I shouldn't expect anything to happen, but there is always a little hope in my heart. Maybe there will be a little possibility? Miss Audrey is an outstanding woman. Standing with you always makes people want to bless you from the bottom of their hearts." The following content is mostly Germani's soliloquy and self-pity, without any valuable information. Hasta has not received a letter from Mrs. Germani for the first time, and he has a certain understanding of her writing style. In the letter, Madame German always portrays herself as a shy and bold, self-abased and self-pitying person. It's a bit complicated, it should be related to her life experience. After all, it's normal for her to have a distorted worldview with an immortal witch as her mother. Hasta hurriedly shook his head. He seemed to have gradually empathized with Madame German. This is not a good phenomenon. We need to be vigilant and reflect. Suppressing some messy thoughts, Hasta took a piece of paper and prepared to write a reply to Madame German. No matter what happened in the past, German's letter was full of concern for him, and she swore on her own life. No matter what, he should write a reply. Whether it was out of gratitude or out of aristocratic etiquette. The content of the letter he wrote was very short, and it was summarized in only 3 sentences. He liked a quiet life and didn't want to be disturbed. Reveal what happened last night and thank her for her kindness. Reject any affection and let her not make mistakes. After writing the letter, put it in an envelope and ask butler Neil to send it to Mrs. Germani. After doing all this, Hasta took out another blank piece of letter paper and began to write the rest of the story of Pinocchio that he had told last time. The Adventures of Pinocchio, 2. After his father died, he learned to make puppets with life. This should have been a happy thing, but he was not happy at all. He looked at his relatives and felt a deep sorrow in his heart. One day, other relatives would die like his father, his mother, his brother, his sister, and finally he would be the only one left. He felt that he should look for a more advanced puppet-making technology so that living people could live forever in the form of puppets, rather than making a puppet with only appearance. About a month later, he made all the preparations and began this long journey, opening a new prelude to the adventures of Pinocchio. After writing, Hasta checked if there was anything that needed to be corrected, and then counted the number of words considerately. When it was almost the same as the story he told last time, he left a suspenseful sentence as the end of this chapter. As for the other contents, of course, I am going to write the Adventures of Pinocchio, 3, depending on the situation. If I can continue, I will write the Adventures of Pinocchio, 100. As for what Sharon felt while waiting for the update, Hasta didn't want to guess. He blew the whistle, summoned Sharon's messenger, and handed the letter to it. Although he could ask Marriage to deliver it when he went to the Brave Bar at night. But after the last incident, he had already questioned Marriage's credibility. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Above the gray fog, the new tarot club was convened. Today, Klein sat alone at the head of the bronze table for a long time. He was thinking about an important question, whether to go to Backland. With the end of the incident between Lenevis and Ince Zanguil, the captain of the Red Gloves team invited them, asking if they were willing to go to Backland, join the Red Gloves, or directly serve in Backland. Leonard did not hesitate, he chose to join the Red Gloves at once. He seemed to hate the past self who did not make progress, and now he wanted to seize the time to be promoted to a higher sequence. He did it, and it was said that it would not take long to be promoted to Sequence 7 Nightmare. The captain was unwilling to leave Tingen, he just wanted to protect Tingen forever, so he wanted to give this opportunity to other team members. And he was already a Sequence 8 clown, not far from a Sequence 7 magician. According to the results of his divination, Backland was not only the city of hope in the eyes of the world, but also the city of hope for his future. For personal considerations, he was also willing to go to Backland to see this city of all cities. But Benson and Melissa couldn't follow him to Backland in a short time. Melissa had to focus on her studies, and Benson was still worried about losing his hair because of the civil service exam. It would take them half a year to go to Backland after all this. Benson was very generous about this, telling him not to miss the opportunity to work in Backland, and asked him to settle down in Backland in advance and wait for their arrival. Although Melissa didn't stop him, the strong reluctance in her eyes showed her unwillingness. Miss Justice should be a noble lady living in Backland. Klein thought about it, and it seemed that there was another reason to go to Backland. And Lenevis and Ince Zangwill had also fled to Backland. These two people had caused so many troubles in Tingen, and they absolutely deserved to die and could not be let go. When I started to hesitate, it meant that I had made a choice. Klein lowered his head and smiled, collected his thoughts, and began to summon Miss Justice, Mr. Hanged Man, and Little Sun to come to the meeting. Mr. Fool, good afternoon. No matter what time it is, as long as you hear Miss Justice's greeting, you will always feel full of energy and sweep away your depressed mood. Mr. Fool was in a good mood and took the Russell diary they sent and started reading it. This time, there was not much useful knowledge in Russell's diary. It seemed that all the coincidences ended with Ince Zangwill taking 008 away. He had suspected that Miss Justice might have a problem before, but now he was more willing to believe that it was the coincidence created by 008 that caused the abnormal content of Russell's diary in his hands. After reading Russell's diary, he entered the free chat session. Little Sun shared what he saw and heard in the City of Silver, which made Mr. Fool, Mr. Hanged Man, and Miss Justice, who had been taking advantage of him for free, gain a lot. Alger mentioned that the southern continent has been very uneasy recently. The Seven Gods Church took joint action this time to eliminate the cancer entrenched in the southern continent in one fell swoop, but the progress did not seem to be too great. Because apart from the Eternal Blazing Sun Church, which was going all out, the other Orthodox churches had limited manpower to mobilize, citing that their bases were not in the southern continent. In addition, the cooperation with the Seven Gods Church aroused the vigilance of the major forces in the southern continent, and they all chose to cooperate tacitly to prevent the Seven Gods Church from expanding its influence in the southern continent. In general, it was a mess, extremely chaotic. Audrey thought about it and began to share what she had seen and heard during this period. She mainly mentioned Backland's search for believers of the stars. This is currently the biggest hot topic in Backland's extraordinary world. Alger sighed, there has been a special team in the Church of the Seven Gods to find the believers of the stars, but unfortunately there has been no progress. Audrey said dissatisfiedly, recently, because of the matter of the Apostles of the Stars, Backland has caused dozens of murders, most of which are related to extraordinary people. The people hiding in the dark seem to want to find the believers of the stars by killing all suspicious extraordinary people. This crazy and bloody way of doing things is a bit similar to the group of lunatics in the Aurora Society. Only they dare to act like this. Aurora Society? By the way, there is an extraordinary who claims to be Mr. A who has issued a large reward. Is he a member of the Aurora Society? Alger nodded and said, it is very likely. You'd better stay away from them. They are all crazy. They never care about the identity of the other party when killing people. Even if it is a powerful noble, they dare to assassinate directly. Audrey pouted slightly. This is clearly a warning to herself. Is her noble origin so obvious? But she still thanked Mr. Hanged Man for reminding her. After talking for a while, Audrey and Alger turned their eyes to Mr. Fool, who was sitting in the first seat, and asked him if he knew what the stars represented. This question was not easy to answer, but it was also easy to answer. Klein, who had been listening, had long anticipated that Mr. Fool would be asked for advice, so he had already thought of a countermeasure in his mind. According to the information he got from Russell's diary, the starry sky was extremely dangerous, with a risk factor of at least 5 stars. Stars, just the title was amazing. He had heard a terrifying prophecy. When the stars return to their positions, chaos will rise from the ground, and the great beginning will awaken. The so-called believers of the stars are probably believers of this terrifying prophecy. In the previous life, there were also many people who believed that 2012 would be the end of the Earth. But in the end, nothing happened. Of course, in this world with extraordinary power, the stars may have a stronger symbol. After several considerations, he smiled and said, "The stars are above your heads." This sentence is absolutely correct and has a high level of style, enough to make Miss Justice and Mr. Hanged Man give up the idea of continuing to ask. "The stars are above your heads?" Audrey and Alger subconsciously looked up, and even the little son looked up. Shocked, an indescribable fear seemed to crawl from the bottom of their hearts to their bodies in an instant. Audrey and Alger lowered their heads at the same time, putting away their speculations about the stars in their hearts. As Mr. Fool said, there are stars above our heads. Such symbolic meaning is even more terrifying than the 7 gods. After all, the eternal sun is just a star. Alger finally understood why the 7 gods church would unanimously seek out so-called believers of the stars. It was out of fear, because of the unknown. Little Sun glanced at the gray mist above his head again, and didn't understand why he needed to be afraid. Gray mist is better than darkness, right? As for the stars? They can't even see the sun in Silver City, let alone the stars. He hoped that the light of the stars could shine all over their Silver City. But now there is Mr. Fool. He believes that Mr. Fool will bring light to Silver City in the near future. Seeing that one sentence calmed the 3 of them, Klein smiled and said, "Let's stop the gathering today." After sending the 3 away, Klein also looked up. Fortunately, he didn't feel anything special. People are always full of fear of the starry sky because of the unknown and their own insignificance. But the gorgeous starry sky always attracts people's attention, making people want to immerse themselves in it for the rest of their lives. If he didn't know that the starry sky was extremely dangerous, he would also like to see the starry sky of this world and see how it was different from the starry sky of his original world. After all, humans have not yet found the second planet where life was born. He is very interested in knowing what kind of galactic environment is needed to create a second planet with life. Maybe he can even see a shape similar to the Milky Way from the galaxy map. Klein stopped daydreaming after a while, as such things were too far away from him. Go offline and leave the gray fog. Klein tidied his clothes in front of the mirror in the bathroom and then walked out. He took out his pocket watch to check the time, then snapped it shut. It was still a little early, so he could go out for a walk, buy some ingredients, and prepare a hearty dinner. The last time, the potato stewed beef was well received, but Melissa felt sorry for him wasting too much oil. Well, buy Melissa a bigger pudding so that she can eat enough at one time. After shopping, Mr. Fool put on his apron and began to cut vegetables, light the fire, put the food in the pot, and cook. When Melissa and Benson came back, they saw the sumptuous dinner on the table. They were stunned for a moment, and then they understood something. Benson gave his blessings and encouragement. Melissa's eyes were red, and she also whispered a blessing. Klein raised a glass of ginger beer and smiled. We are only separated temporarily. We will reunite in Backland in the future. Cheers to the upcoming reunion. Cheers. Benson also raised a glass of ginger beer, and Melissa carefully held the lemon pudding, which was 2 circles larger than before, in both hands. The next day, Klein went to the Blackthorn Security Company and submitted his application for transfer to Backland to his captain Dunn Smith. Dunn Smith took the official seal and stamped it, smiling and saying, "This is a very wise decision. Tingen is small, but your future is bright. You should go out and explore more while you are young." No, Tingen is not small at all. It will become great because of the captain's protection. Klein laughed, just like the smile he showed when he received his first salary as a Nighthawk. Klein, look, this is the steam train to Backland. The discovery of steam is definitely the greatest invention of this era. Leonard enthusiastically began to act as a tour guide and introduced Klein, from the invention of steam to the discovery of steam trains, to the laying of tracks and the use of them for civilian purposes. Klein kept a polite smile, but in his heart he was thinking, If Leonard knew that there would be an electric age in the future, how would he react? When he saw the cars driving on the street, he would definitely exclaim that this iron beetle with 4 wheels could actually travel so fast. When he saw the plane in the sky, he would definitely be completely stunned. When did humans conquer the sky? When he got a smartphone, the look on his face must have been even more exciting. Thinking about it, Klein's mouth corners slightly raised. Why didn't he know how to enjoy it more before? After waiting for about half an hour, the two of them successfully got on the steam train to Backland. With a whistle echoing in every corner of the platform, the huge steam train head like a monster dragged more than 20 carriages and began to head to Backland, the city of hope. When the whistle sounded again, the steam train arrived at Backland with its heavy body. Klein, who was wearing a tuxedo and a half-high silk hat, and Leonard, who was very active beside him, followed the crowd out of the train door and came to the outside of the platform. Leonard stared at the gray sky for a long time, and finally complained, "Klein, Backland's sky is even worse than what is described in the newspaper. When I think about living in such a place in the future, my originally happy mood has been poured with a bucket of cold water." In addition to the gray sky, the air quality here has always been very poor. Except for the advanced technology and the population, everything here cannot be compared with Tingen. Alas, in such a gray world, pastoral poetry has been far away from me, getting farther and farther away. If one day I can no longer write moving poems, it must be Backland's fault. Hey, this sentence just now is quite poetic. I must write it down. Maybe I can use it when I write new poems in the future. With Leonard as a mouthpiece for nagging, Klein, who originally wanted to complain a few words, chose to keep silent and took out his pocket watch to check the time. It was 4:30 in the afternoon, but it was already very late now. Gas lamps were lit everywhere, and the dim light dispelled the gloom and dimness here. He suddenly remembered a joke in the tussock newspaper. A gentleman who had just arrived in Backland got lost in the thick fog and had to ask a gentleman who passed by him, who was all wet, how to get to the Tussock River. The gentleman replied very kindly, "Go straight, don't stop, I just swam up from there." Every time he saw a newspaper about Backland, the group of reporters and editors spared no effort to ridicule the air pollution here. Now it seems that they have taken care of the face of the powerful. "Let's go, we need to report to St. Samuel's Church." "Klein, why don't you choose to join the Red Gloves with me?" "I prefer to be a night watcher." "Okay. I hope we can see each other often in the future." "Yes, after all, you have just joined the Red Gloves, and it will take some time to get used to it." Leonard thought so too, and he and Klein started to find the way by comparing the map, and soon took the steam train to the North District. After reporting to St. Samuel's Church, Klein was assigned to the night watcher team responsible for managing the West District. In Backland, there are 3 Nighthawks, one in Queens, one in the West, and the other in the docks. Klein was able to be directly assigned to the West, which was already a very good starting point. Although the 3 Nighthawks were in the same position, Queens was where the great nobles and the royal family were located. The Nighthawks here had the best location and the invisible conditions for joining were higher. Klein didn't care too much about these. He only cared about how much his weekly salary would increase after he was transferred to Backland this time. And whether the Nighthawks were responsible for arranging food and accommodation. If you find a house outside and eat by yourself, should you get housing and meal allowances? After all, this is Backland, and the daily living expenses must be much more than Tingen. Leonard, who was going to stay in the Red Gloves for a period of training, was sighing at the strength of the goddess. Backland was divided into so many districts, and the Church of the Goddess of Night suddenly occupied 3 important districts: Queens, West, and North. Although they were responsible for managing their own believers on weekdays, and it was not such a simple division, but mixed management. But this did not prevent Leonard from thinking that the goddess was the most powerful. After all, a qualified believer could always find every place to praise the gods. "Klein, we will part ways here. After I have determined where to live, remember to write to me and chat if you have nothing to do." "Well, I am also going to learn how to summon messengers from Ms. Daly. Summon the messenger of the spirit world. If I have time, I will also get one. Only in this way can I be considered a qualified extraordinary person." Leonard seemed a little excited. Klein just shook his head secretly. He just thought that if he had to keep communicating with Leonard, it would be a waste of postage. It would be more economical to send letters by messenger. After parting with Leonard, Klein went to the Night Watcher team in the West alone to report. I don't know how the Tingen incident is going. Has the original story changed? Has Klein rewritten the ending, or did he still die in that disaster? Asta calculated the time at home, and the Tingen incident was almost coming to an end. He did not send anyone to Tingen, so he had no idea what happened in Tingen. A few days ago, he had read a little record about Tingen in a newspaper called Low and Brief. The newspaper said that there was a small disturbance in Tingen, but it was quickly dealt with. With just such a brief information, it is impossible to guess what happened in Tingen. In this regard, Asta can only analyze Tingen's affairs through speculation. This made him not continue to forge Rissel's diary during this period of time, and he could only shirk to Audrey that there was no new Rissel diary for the time being, missing the opportunity to make a fortune. My Lord Baron, Manager Harley sent someone to deliver the factory's income this month. When Asta was thinking in the study, the arrival of Butler Neal interrupted his temporary thoughts. How much is it in total? 3,400 gold pounds. Not bad. Help me prepare a copy and send it to Growlant's house. Manager Harley has already divided it according to the share ratio in advance. 3,400 is the net profit of the Baron this month. Manager Harley said that it can increase by at least 50% next month. This time, Asta was really moved. He originally thought that his own profit was only about 2,000 gold pounds, but he didn't expect it to be so much. If it continues like this, at least 50,000 gold pounds can be earned this year. This is a huge sum of money. Keep 3,000 gold pounds and keep the other 400 gold pounds for family use. Asta quickly divided the wealth for use, and Butler Neal left to deal with the matter as he said. Now, it can be regarded as a real industry of my own, although it is far less than that of a bank tycoon like Earl Hall. Asta thought for a while and decided to continue to invest the 3,000 gold pounds. He planned to acquire some industries with more promising future. With his current financial resources, he can only acquire some small and micro enterprises, which is far from the threshold of industries such as steel and banking. It was the night of the full moon on the 15th day. Furs was lying on the bed, preparing to welcome the full moon whispers from the 15th day. With the previous experience, she was not panicked at all now. The only thing she was afraid of was that Hugh would know her secret. Although she believed that Hugh would definitely not tell others that she was a believer of the stars, the more people knew about this kind of thing, the more dangerous it would be. Especially now that everyone in Backland was in danger. So for Hugh's safety, Furs would send Hugh out of the door every time the full moon whispers came, and lock the doors and windows, leaving her alone in the room. After waiting for about 20 minutes, the full moon whispers came, and Furs felt that she would never forget the familiar pain in her life. She knelt on the bed sheet in the standard posture of a devout believer, clasped her hands together and began to pray to the stars. The main reason was that she didn't know what was so particular about the belief in the stars, such as what posture to use for prayer, what scripture to read, what gestures to use to represent the stars, etc. When a brilliant starry sky appeared on the ceiling above her head, and the starlight enveloped her, the whispers from the full moon disappeared in an instant. All that was left for Furs was peace and tranquility, without any pain. Every time at this time, she would be very firm in her belief. No matter how turbulent the situation in Backland was now, she did not regret believing in the stars. Well, she felt that she was already a firm believer in the stars. After the duration of the full moon whispers passed, Furs sincerely expressed her piety and gratitude to the stars. In the past, at this time, the starry sky would disperse and everything would return to peace. But this time, Furs saw that the brilliant starlight in the starry sky gathered into paragraphs of text, which was ancient Hermes. A fool who does not belong to this era. The mysterious master above the gray fog. The yellow and black king who controls good luck. Look for an opportunity to pray every few days. Forsee stared at it several times, a little confused. In this case, the stars should have given her an order to carry out. This is normal. To accept the protection of the stars, you always need to do something for the stars. But just now she claimed to be a firm believer in the stars, and in the blink of an eye, the stars were about to ask her to pray to another unknown mysterious existence. Although she was not asked to offer her loyalty, it felt a bit strange, as if it was a plot in a novel where a new member who had just joined recently accepted an organizational mission and went to another organization to work as an undercover agent. This kind of plot is common between police stations and evil organizations. She has sometimes imagined similar plots. Unexpectedly, today, her dream has become a reality. She seems to be starting an undercover career. I don't know what kind of big shot this fool is, so worthy of the stars sending down oracles and sending his loyal followers to go undercover to collect intelligence. Follow the guidance of the stars. Foresee memorized all the text content, indicating that he had accepted the mission. Only then did the words condensed by starlight disperse, and the starry sky also disappeared. Anyway, this is the first mission Kungshin has given him. Letting him be an undercover agent is also out of his pious trust in himself. Foresee muttered a few words to himself, firmly believing that he must investigate all the information about the fool for the stars. What kind of mysterious master above the gray fog? It sounds like he is shady. Controlling good luck is a consistent disguise of the evil gods. They always like to use such descriptions to seduce poor people who are in urgent need of help. This fool should be a certain evil god. My undercover mission is a difficult and righteous one. Foresee encouraged herself and prepared to try to pray to the fool tomorrow night. If there was anything unusual, she would report it to the stars in time. Well, I need to read some related books to familiarize myself with how to be a qualified undercover agent. If my identity is exposed, my first mission will be a failure. Foer thought for a while before getting out of bed and opening the door. Zio, who had been standing guard not far outside the door, complained dissatisfiedly. Why does it take so long this time? I thought you had an accident. I just took this time to take a nap, Foresee explained casually. Zio stared at Foresee for a while, his expression hesitant, and he wanted to ask something, but he stopped when he reached his mouth. What's wrong? Foresee could see something was wrong with Zio. Shang thought for a while and decided to say what he had hidden for a long time. Foresee, I know that you believe in a mysterious being who can provide you with shelter. I don't know if that mysterious being is related to the stars. I just hope that in the future try to be careful yourself. Well, I will be careful. If there is nothing important, I will not go out. Foresee was a little surprised at Zio's keenness, but he also knew that the increasingly violent storm in Backland had recently made Zio start to make associations. You rarely go out. Zio smiled, feeling much more relaxed. It was she who helped Foresee connect with Asta. Although she didn't know the specific situation, the recent events naturally made her think of this matter. Counting carefully, the time before and after is not far apart. Foresee also smiled and said, you will need to buy the ingredients every day from now on. After all, I want to go out as little as possible. That's only a few steps away. Even if it's just one step, it's still a step out. Thinking that he would have to do the task of buying ingredients every day in the future, Zio's expression fell. He would have known that she would have said nothing just now. Letting Foresee join the Tarot Club was Asta's decision after many thoughts. He needs someone to observe Klein's latest movements on his behalf. It's not necessarily to provide help to Klein, but to use the Tarot Club to understand where the world line is going, which will help him judge the current situation. On the other hand, it can be regarded as an additional source of information, and it can also promote the improvement of Forsee's strength. There is no need to find additional opportunities for her. When Foresee joins the Tarot Club, there will be 2 of her own informants in the Tarot Club. Audrey and Foresee can already compete with Alger and Little Sun. In the future, according to the relationship between Foresee and Zio, Zio can be regarded as half of his informant, and on Bernadette's side, the Star Admiral has always been loyal to Bernadette. Calculating it this way, whether it is now or in the future, half of the Tarot Club is already my own. Thinking of this, Hastur himself was stunned for a moment. Unknowingly, he had already occupied more than half of the Tarot Club's influence. The gathering of 2 and 5 boys is truly worthy of its name. Asta couldn't help but sigh with emotion. After checking the time, he took out a paper crane and prepared to chat with Will. Tomorrow, Will would go to the hospital for surgery. He originally wanted to go to the hospital to see Will, but Will disagreed, saying that his arrival would cause changes in fate and have immeasurable consequences. Hasta seriously suspected that this was an excuse that Will deliberately thought up to avoid seeing him. Late night, West End. Ah! A scream disturbed the tranquility of the night. When the two police officers arrived at the scene, the murderer had already disappeared, leaving only two mutilated and bloody bodies. One of them was a noble, or a baron, and the other should be the baron's butler, or his bodyguard. After the two police officers checked the crime scene, it seemed that there was a mysterious magic coming from the two corpses. The sound of whispering from nowhere touched their hearts and tempted their weak places. When the night watchers patrolled and found the situation here, the two police officers were squatting on the ground, leaning down, stretching out their hands to take out the internal organs of the two corpses and eating them with relish. Noticing someone coming, the two police officers looked back, licked the blood in their mouths, and then rushed towards the newcomer with a grin. In this case, the only choice is to kill to prevent the harm from continuing to expand. This case was naturally transferred from the police station to the West District Night Watchers. As a new member, Klein did not go on patrol tonight, but stayed in the office to familiarize himself with the business procedures here. Compared with the more scattered management of Tingen Night Watchers, Backland's Night Watchers are very standardized in various management aspects, and do not allow private external tasks. This means a lot of extra income is lost, but the weekly salary here is very high. When he first arrived, he received 1.5 times the original weekly salary, and he also received housing and meal allowances. Basically, he can save as much salary as he gets paid that week. High salary naturally means more work, longer working hours, and more frequent tasks. Compared to Tingen, the number of Beyonders in Backland has increased by dozens of times, making it very difficult to manage. Because of the recent frequent cases, the Night Watch squad will send 2 teams of members to patrol various places in the jurisdiction every night. Klein also heard about the case tonight, but it is not his business for the time being. He is still in the familiarization stage. It's about the believers of the stars again. Those people are just like mad dogs. They don't want to let go of any suspicious Beyonders. There's nothing we can do. Based on the information we know so far, there are at least 4 or 5 groups of people secretly pushing this matter. As long as they don't find the believers of the stars, Backland will not be at peace. What a headache. Even the barbarians of Fussek secretly sent people to infiltrate Backland, also to find the believers of the stars. Not only them, other churches have also sent people to infiltrate Backland. If not, how could this matter ferment to this extent? Klein, who was passing by, naturally heard the conversation between the new captain and other team members. How about we think of a way to have someone pretend to be a believer of the stars and lure out all those guys hiding in the dark? This method seems feasible, but it requires the consent of St. Samuel's Church. Otherwise, our team of night watchmen will definitely be torn to pieces by the jackals in the dark. Even if the church agrees, it will be a difficult problem to find someone to pretend to be a believer of the stars. When they discussed this, their eyes all turned to Klein, who was pouring a cup of coffee to get out of trouble. Klein was stunned for a moment, took a sip of coffee, and the strong bitter taste instantly made him energetic. What did he hear just now? Someone needs to go and pretend to be a believer of the stars. And he seems to be a good choice. No, this mission sounds very dangerous. He has just arrived in Backland and has not even received his first week's salary. But he was embarrassed to refuse, so he could only continue to drink the bitter coffee and pretend that he didn't hear anything. Klein has just joined our team. We shouldn't put this dangerous mission on his shoulders. Let's wait for the reply from the church first. I heard that the Red Gloves team has also joined a good seedling? I heard that he is already a Sequence 7 nightmare, and he is still a young man. Very good. Maybe he is a better candidate. Well, the Red Gloves team is originally responsible for handling such difficult and extraordinary events. Klein walked by silently, and couldn't help but mourn for Leonard for 3 seconds in his heart. According to their plan, for Leonard, who is still a newcomer to Backland, his sudden appearance is indeed very easy to disguise as a believer of the stars and lure out those cruel guys lurking in the dark. Of course, this is very dangerous. The church's response was quick. The next day, opinions on this matter were sent to the Nighthawks team in the West District. The superiors agreed to use fake followers of the stars to lure out the malicious people lurking in the dark, and also asked members of the Red Gloves team to cooperate with their actions, and members of the Punisher and the Heart of the Machine will also join. Try to take advantage of this opportunity to severely crack down on those rampant elements, so as to shock the tigers and scare the monkeys. To restore Backland's previous calm, at least we must curb this trend of random killings. Regarding the candidate to pretend to be a believer in the stars, Leonard, who has recently joined the Red Gloves team, is indeed a suitable choice, but his consent needs to be obtained and cannot be forced. I am willing to accept this task. In this regard, Leonard, as the person involved, took on this seemingly extremely dangerous task with a serious face. Very good. The original intention of our Red Glove team was to solve the difficult and extraordinary events in the church. Every team member must have the consciousness to sacrifice at any time to protect everything. The Red Glove captain patted Leonard on the shoulder and was very satisfied with Leonard's statement. Although it is said above that you are not allowed to force yourself, if you back down on something like this, there will always be some people who come out and gossip. Their Red Gloves team would not allow their players to shrink back because of fear. Captain, I will definitely complete this mission successfully. Leonard had a bright smile on his face. His original intention in coming to Backland was to have a new beginning. He wanted to say goodbye to the childish, cowardly and incompetent self of the past. He doesn't want to be a waste who needs others to save him, but becomes a hero who can protect others, like his eternal Captain Dunn Smith. After finalizing the matter, Leonard was able to come out and breathe alone. You really dared to take any job on yourself. The familiar voice deep in Leonard's heart sounded again. Old man, don't you think it's cool to be the person who carries everyone's expectations and hopes? Oh, do you think you are the Hanged Man? What does this have to do with the Hanged Man? Leonard didn't quite understand what he said. The stars are unknown existences. Even if their followers are really active in Backland, they cannot be solved by a Sequence 7 like you. Don't worry, old man. I'm just a bait. After fishing out those people lurking in the dark, I can leave safely. What makes you think that if you want to kill someone, you need to show up from the shadows? The water in Backland is very, very deep. You, a Sequence 7, are like a drop of water falling into the ocean. You are not even qualified to become a wave. Leonard was silent for a while, then laughed. Old man, you're becoming more and more concerned about me now. Yes, if you die, how can I take your body, old man? I already believe that you have no ill intentions towards me. It will only make you look stupider. Leonard didn't want to talk anymore. He had been guarding against the old man in Tingen, which caused his promotion to be slow and unable to change the situation. The old man called him stupid, and he admitted it. But now that he came to Backland, he already believed that the old man meant no harm to him, but the old man still said he was stupid. Arrogant old man. Leonard finally gave this evaluation. After relaxing, Leonard returned to the Red Glove team and began to discuss how to play a star believer, what kind of cooperation they need, how to fish out the enemies hiding in the dark, etc. Late at night, after another busy day, Klein returned to the house he rented in the Jowood district to prepare for a rest. It is still quite a distance from the office of the West District Nighthawks team. Originally, he wanted to live in the West District to avoid having to travel between life and work, but after taking a look at the rents of houses near the West District, he silently left the West District and chose to come to the Jowood district. For the same house, the rent between the two is equivalent to the difference between the 2nd Ring Road and the 8th Ring Road, and the food is also much cheaper. If you choose to live in the Jowood district, you can still have a slight balance in housing and meal subsidies. If you live in the West District, you will have to contribute 1/3 of your weekly salary. As for the distance to work, which is a bit far, you can take a public carriage from here to the office in the West District for 4 pence, and then walk about 200 meters. A round trip a day is only 8 pence, 6 days a week is exactly 4 sulers.
Apart from being a waste of time, everything is better here than in the West End.
You still need to work hard to make money. Klein wondered if he could save enough money for a house within half a year. After all, it is an old tradition to buy a house, and he also wants to buy a house of his own in Backland, the most prosperous city, preferably a single-family house with a garden. After Benson and Melissa came to Backland, they had a real home in Backland. Half a year is a bit unrealistic. Klein lamented the difficulty of making money and checked the time. It was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. He went to the bathroom to take a bath and then went to bed to rest. After taking a bath, before he could fall asleep, the spirit reminded him that someone was praying to the name of the fool. It's so late, who could it be? Little son? Klein entered the gray fog and looked at the small sparkling light. It was not Justice, the hanged man, or the little son, but a complete stranger.
Strangely, only Miss Justice and the other three should know the fool's honorable name, right? How could anyone else know the fool's honorable name and pray to the fool at this time?
Perhaps the fool once left traces in this world. Klein thought about the reason why he traveled across time. Even he could buy books about the fool's name at street stalls. It seemed normal for people in this extraordinary world to know the fool's name. Just like the little son back then, his prayer also alarmed him.
Another new tarot member. Klein did not immediately pull this person to the gray mist. He had to observe carefully first to avoid any accidents. He looked through the gray fog and stared at the praying figure. It was a lady. Her brows were furrowed, as if something was bothering her.
Great fool, omnipotent master of gray fog, O king of yellow and black who controls good luck, I pray that you will cast down your compassionate gaze and bring me the good luck to defeat the disease.
Great fool, omnipotent master of gray mist, O king of yellow and black who controls good luck, I need your help, your salvation, and your mercy. Great fool, omnipotent master of gray fog, O king of yellow and black who controls good luck, only you can relieve my pain, only you can eliminate my misfortune, and only you can change my misfortune. Klein listened carefully for a long time. The woman repeated these words over and over again, and she sounded very sincere. But she looked very healthy, and she didn't have the pale complexion that a sick person should have. Could it be that she has returned to her former glory? Klein took another closer look and confirmed that the woman praying to him was indeed healthy and did not look like a dying person. Ignore it for now, maybe she just wants to use her good luck to make her life happier. Klein ignored it and just made a small mark so that he could observe it a few more times before making a decision. There was no response. It seemed that he still needed to keep up his efforts. 4C, who had been praying for about 20 minutes, felt a little depressed. He wondered if his acting skills were too exaggerated, causing the fool to see the flaws.
Also, in front of such a mysterious existence, my acting skills must be very poor. I need to use a different set of words next time, and my face and clothes need to be the same. Otherwise, the way I look now doesn't look like someone who is seriously ill and needs help. 4C thought for a long time, and when Zio outside started calling her, she got out of bed and left the room. Zio said dissatisfied, "Why did you stay in the room for so long again?" "It's okay, I was just memorizing knowledge from the book." "Memorize knowledge?" Zio's voice suddenly rose a few degrees, and he looked at 4C with a look of shock. "A lazy person like you can actually endorse it diligently. The sun doesn't rise in the west either. Can't I be a little more diligent?" No, you are definitely not the 4C I know." 4C didn't bother to dwell on this topic with her anymore, but asked, "Did something happen when you came back suddenly?" "Something really happened." Zio put away the playful expression on his face and said seriously, "The star believers have appeared." 4C's mind was filled with questions. Are there other followers of the stars in Backland?
It's true, I'm not kidding you. I just feel strange. Where did you get this news?
Right now, word has spread in the Beander circle. It is said that the Nighthawks team discovered a disciple of the stars and chased and intercepted him. However, he escaped in the end and his current whereabouts are unknown. Is this news reliable? I always feel like something is wrong.
Don't worry, we don't need to worry about whether it's true or false, just stay at home and be an audience.
As long as you didn't get involved. 4C felt much more at ease, and was thinking whether she should report the situation to Kungxing tonight. Whether it's the Fool or the star's believers, things are very important. Late at night, everything is silent. Forsee, who pretended to be resting and sleeping, carefully got up. After confirming that Zio had rested, he returned to the room, closed the door and window, and began to pray. The Lord of Chaos and Order. The origin of all rules in the starry sky. He who returns the stars. After about 10 minutes, a starry opening was once again drawn on the ceiling, with stars dotted inside, dazzlingly bright. Every time he saw this starry sky, Forsee couldn't help but marvel at it. That was where the stars were. It was so beautiful. This is the kingdom of gods described in mythology. What's the matter? After speaking lightly, Forsee put away his distracting thoughts and began to report about the Fool and the followers of the stars. In the Hall of Stars, Hastur was originally in a drowsy state, but was disturbed by the appearance of the Star Apostle, and suddenly became energetic. He only has 2 followers in total. Bernadette is still far away in the southern continent and not in Backland at all. Only Forsee is the only star believer in the entire Backland. The disciple of the stars that the Nighthawks team was chasing was 100% fake. He was probably an extraordinary who wanted to fish in troubled waters. That's a trap, don't ignore it. Asta thought for a while and decided to give Forsee a little reminder to prevent her from accidentally getting involved in this matter. Concerning the Fool, do the stars have any new instructions? Hastur thought about his own experience and said calmly, you can try praying late at night. Follow the guidance of the stars. Hastur cut off the connection with Forsee and took back the starry sky. He felt that it was necessary to remind Forsee in the future not to come to pray until late at night every time. It could be done earlier, such as around 11 o'clock. But when he thought that late at night was when the stars shone brightest, he gave up the idea of correcting Forsee. I only hope that after Forsee goes to Sephiroth Castle and becomes a member of the Tarot Society, he will be able to disturb him less late at night. It was so annoying to be woken up suddenly by someone who was sleeping soundly. Let Mr. Fool experience this feeling more. With Forsee's interruption, Asta couldn't sleep for a while, so he looked at the star where the high-dimensional overlooker was. In the past few days, the high-dimensional overlookers have been walking along the seaside. Except for occasionally using their extraordinary ability to travel through time and space, they are no different from ordinary people in other aspects. At the moment, he seemed to have arrived at a port and was squatting on the shore, admiring the boats that went out to sea for fishing in the moonlight and the stars that gathered together in the night. Could it be that the high-dimensional overlooker wants to go to sea? Hastur really hopes that the high-dimensional overlooker will go to the sea. There is enough space there and it is far enough away from Backland, and he can also enjoy the style of the sea. After looking at the incarnation of the high-dimensional overlooker, Hastur turned his gaze to another small point of light. The pair of white crystal eyeballs still hung high in the depths of the chaotic clouds, like a gem embedded in the deep sky. Hastur thought to himself, if the Lord of Storms could notice it and then strike down a few thunderbolts to crush the white crystal eyeball, it would be better than leaving it hanging in the sky. Just as he was thinking that, a black cloud that looked like it was dyed with ink suddenly gathered near the white crystal eyeballs. Inside the black cloud, lightning and thunder were commotion, and the purple thunder that shot out from time to time was like a giant python quietly peeking its head to watch. This is definitely not a normal natural phenomenon. Did the Storm Lord really notice these white crystal eyeballs? Hastur was in high spirits and no longer sleepy. He zoomed in closer so that he could more intuitively feel the violence of the storm. If there is popcorn, the movie-watching experience will definitely be upgraded to another level. The white crystal eyeballs realized the danger and wanted to turn into a stream of light and go away, but a black curtain shrouded it, seeming to cut off the surrounding space. The thunder and lightning that had been brewing for a long time finally gathered enough power to send out a pure white lightning that illuminated the entire night sky. That is lightning concentrated to the extreme. Boom. A heavy muffled thunder flashed across the sky, and some sleeping people were awakened by the sudden explosion of thunder. The white crystal eyeball was severely damaged, and its flawless surface was covered with dense cracks, but it was not completely cracked after all. And with the power of this lightning strike, It turned into a meteor from high altitude and fell to the earth. Only a pure white crack was left in the sky drawn by the lightning. Tisk, the Storm Lord has already planned this. Hester was very happy to see it. After all, he also hated the pair of eyeballs that were always hanging high in the sky. Now that it has been struck down by thunder, even if it is not completely shattered, its power must have been greatly reduced and it will no longer be able to peek at everything from high in the sky. The direction in which those white crystal eyeballs fell seems to be the direction of the Republic of Intis. Hester was surprised that the incarnation of the high-dimensional overlooker was not in that direction, but in the Entima port area in the Kingdom of Loan. Is it simply unable to control the direction of the fall, or is there some other plan? After the meteor completely fell, Hester turned his gaze to the small point of light where the incarnation of the high-dimensional overlooker was. He didn't have any special reaction. He just looked up and then continued to stare at the fishing boats fishing in the distant sea. He didn't even care at all. Could it be that those white crystal eyeballs didn't have much effect on him? Asta looked for a while and found that the high-dimension overlooker was quite calm and didn't care about what happened in the sky at all. Perhaps for him, all this was just a novel experience, and there was no other special meaning. Asta would rather the high-dimension overlooker had some reaction to it, rather than this indifferent attitude. Generally, people who can maintain an indifferent attitude towards everything either have a strong inner world or are just lying down and messing up. The high-dimension overlooker shouldn't be the latter, right? Asta was stunned for a moment, with a strange expression. From the time the high-dimension overlooker descended his incarnation to the present time when the white crystal eyeball was knocked down from the sky by the Lord of Storms, he seemed to have never really cared. He wouldn't be as angry as the lamp god, nor would he be as domineering as the superstar overlord, nor would he be as unpredictable as the mother tree of desire. Could it be that the high-dimension overlooker is really just an extra-large salted fish? Asta tried to think about it. When first became a powerful existence comparable to the outer gods, what would she do? It seems that it can really overlap with the shadow of the high-dimensional Overwatcher. How great it would be if that were true. Asta thought for a while, then gave up guessing the thoughts of the high-dimensional Overwatcher, and turned to think about the Stormlord's move tonight. From the Stormlord's move to the end, it only took a few breaths. This shows that tonight's action had been planned long ago. But why did I see it? Just a simple coincidence? Or is there another reason? I didn't expect the Stormlord to send down thunder to destroy the pair of white crystal eyeballs until tonight, but I just happened to witness this scene. Maybe I thought too much. With the Stormlord's temper, he didn't take action before, just because he was not prepared. Asta thought for a while and then left the Hall of Stars. In the hospital, on the bed, Will was leaning on the pillow, deftly folding white paper into thousands of paper cranes with his hands. His left leg was wrapped in white bandages, and the nurse was very considerate to tie a bow for him. His operation went smoothly, and he did not die due to the failure of the operation. His left leg was also healed and preserved. He only needed to rest in the hospital for about half a month before he could be discharged. My fate has really changed. The feeling is getting stronger and stronger. My fate has finally come to Backland. Should I find a way to connect with him beyond fate, or let everything go with the flow? Fate is unpredictable. If I keep forcing it, will it lead to a completely different fate? Will folded 1,000 paper cranes while thinking about various possible situations in his mind. After a while, a young doctor wearing gold-rimmed glasses came out of the door. Will looked up and smiled sweetly. Dr. Allen was also the attending physician for his operation this time. According to his original idea, he would become the son of Dr. Allen after his operation failed. But now, his operation was successful, and it was naturally impossible for him to reincarnate as the son of Dr. Allen again. The fate that might have existed was changed by him. After checking Will's physical condition, Dr. Allen said happily, "Will, you look very good and your body has recovered very well. I believe that you will be able to leave the hospital in good health in a short time. Thank you for your concern, Dr. Allen." Will thought for a while and said, "Dr. Allen is very lucky. He will definitely give birth to a smart and filial son." "Will, how do you know that I'm going to be a father soon?" Dr. Allen looked at Will in surprise. He didn't remember mentioning this. Will smiled brightly. I heard the nurse mention it. Dr. Allen leaned down slightly, touched Will's head and smiled. It would be great if my future children could be as well behaved and cute as you. Here, Dr. Allen, this is my blessing. Will handed a folded paper crane to Dr. Allen. Will, thank you for your blessing. Dr. Allen put away the paper crane and left the ward under Will's gaze. A little after 8 in the evening, William Street, West District. The light of the crimson moon was scattered, and the originally lively street looked particularly different at this moment because of the arrival of a group of people. You want to catch me just because of you? You underestimate the protection of the stars for me? A figure in a black robe stood in the middle of the street, surrounded by a circle of members of the Night Watcher team. On the outer periphery, there were police officers setting up cordons to prevent strangers from breaking in. You are indeed a believer of the stars. Recently, Backland has been in a mess because of you believers of the stars. Now, there is finally a chance to catch you rats hiding in the dark. I heard that someone is offering a large reward for you. I didn't expect that you, as a believer of the stars, would dare to show up openly. The scene that should have been a bloody fight was a bit strange at this moment. The Night Watcher team had clearly surrounded the other party, but did not immediately attack the figure. Instead, they talked loudly, fearing that others would not know that they surrounded a believer of the stars tonight. Haha, you guys want to catch me? The lack of respect for the stars will be the reason for your failure tonight. I'll stand here, no matter how many people you have, I can leave at any time. Because the stars will always protect me. The surrounded figure was not panicked, but full of confidence, as if the Nighthawks present were just a bunch of trash in his eyes. The Nighthawks continued to taunt, and the figure still confidently retorted. Klein, who is also a member of the Nighthawks tonight, really wants to find a crack in the ground to hide. This is really embarrassing. No matter Leonard's slightly exaggerated acting and tone, or the stiff cooperation of the Nighthawks. Everything is wrong. This is like the pretentious and face-slapping plot in some novels. Things that can be solved directly, both parties have to keep talking to each other. It's nothing but embarrassment. Klein is really glad that it's not him who needs to perform on stage tonight, otherwise he will definitely not be able to perform smoothly. Leonard is really amazing. He gets more and more excited as he talks about the stars. He has completely entered the role of the believer of the stars. After the two sides exchanged verbal battles for more than 10 minutes, many extraordinary people appeared from the darkness nearby, broke through the blockade of the outer police officers, and came to the inner circle of William Street. They basically disguised themselves to a certain extent. Some wore masks, some wore black robes, and some directly painted some messy makeup on their faces. They had no awe of the Nighthawks, and their eyes were all staring at Leonard, who was surrounded. Whether it was the huge reward issued by Mr. A or the additional reward from others later, it was worth taking this risk. As long as the believer of the stars was snatched from the hands of the Nighthawks, even if it was just a corpse, it could be exchanged for a large sum of wealth. It can be used to promote to a higher extraordinary sequence, or you can be a rich man for life. The Nighthawks are doing business, and those who are not related should leave quickly. Kurt Dill, the captain of the West District Nighthawks, stood up and glanced at the strange extraordinary people who appeared around him. Star believers, we have been looking for them for so long, how could they leave just because of your words? What about the Night Watchers? The believers of the night are disgusting. Don't say so much, grab the people, whoever grabs the head will complete the bounty. Soon, a big melee broke out. Leonard, who was specially targeted, was not panicked when he heard that those extraordinary people wanted his head. Since he came to act as bait and perform dangerous tasks, the church would naturally give him something to save his life. Stars twinkle. He deliberately shouted in the direction of the crowd, and then the starlight was shining around him, and the whole person disappeared from everyone's sight. Some extraordinary people who were still hiding in the dark observed this scene, and finally believed that the people who appeared tonight were believers of the stars. They could no longer suppress their greed and took action. At the edge of Queens, Savella's Square, Leonard, who escaped from the encirclement by the twinkling of the stars, appeared here out of thin air. The corners of his mouth slightly raised, And he laughed loudly. You think you can catch the believers protected by the stars? It's too good to be true. I am a believer of the stars. At night, the stars will give me a power that is difficult to defeat.
You are only worthy of watching my back from afar.
After a round of ridicule, he strode towards the empty area. After a while, 7 or 8 strange figures appeared around. They seemed to have a tacit understanding and spontaneously formed a circle to surround Leonard in the middle. Why, you want to catch me too? Leonard glanced at them with contempt. He was not panicked about the dangerous situation of being surrounded again, but relieved. Such a situation had been in their plan rehearsal. The first time he appeared, even if he could attract some extraordinary people lurking in the dark, they should only be some small fish and shrimps. After all, when the situation is not clear, there will not be too many people who really take action, but will choose to wait and see, waiting for the critical moment to take action.
So in order to lure out these real troublemakers, they decided to lure the snakes out of their holes again. This is the real encirclement tonight. Leonard wanted to continue to taunt, but suddenly felt that a powerful meander was coming through the spirit world.
A big fish has been caught tonight, and there is more than one. He couldn't be sure if there was a sequence 4 demigod, but there must be a sequence 5 strongman.
I won't play with you anymore. Leonard lowered his head and smiled. His mission was completed. Now it was the turn of the Red Gloves team and the church staff to deal with these beyonders who had been exposed. He tightened the black robe on his body, perfectly hiding his breath, and then he shouted, "The stars are shining." Accompanied by a burst of dazzling starlight, his figure disappeared again.
At the same time, the breath he left behind also disappeared. This is a powerful seal given to him by the Church of the Goddess of Night. There are 3 in total. One is a life-saving item used to perform space transfer, and the other is to simulate the light of the stars. These 2 seals are used together, which is the so-called stars shining. The last seal is the black robe on his body. This is a cloak that can change form and hide breath, and is simply called the night cloak.
With the 3 seals on him, Leonard can face the dangerous situation tonight calmly.
Deep in the alley near the Brave Bar, Leonard changed the night cloak on his body into a black windbreaker, and walked out of the alley with a look of disgust. The last time the stars were shining, he deliberately teleported farther away in order to avoid those extraordinary people hiding in the dark. Who knew that this teleportation almost made him collide with a trash can, but fortunately he dodged in time, otherwise he would be covered with a layer of stench. As he was about to walk out of the alley, Leonard lowered his head and murmured, "Old man, there are no powerful beyonders spying on me in the dark now, right? Didn't you act very brave just now? You are actually afraid now?"
Ahem, I did that to make it more realistic. I see you are having fun acting.
I am quite happy, after all, I just played a group of beyonders who are much stronger than me. Leonard couldn't help but raise his mouth when thinking about tonight's performance. He felt that the time was still too short and the performance was not smooth enough.
If there is another chance next time, he will prepare more fully, and it is better to prepare a copy.
For example, how to speak to appear particularly arrogant and confident. What actions should be used to show that you are different? When using the twinkling stars, how should he provoke everyone? Haha, pretending to be a believer of the stars, if you really have something to do with the stars, don't regret your behavior tonight. Leonard's mouth twitched slightly, and he hesitated for a while and said, "Old man, is it really that serious? If you pretend to be a believer of the Lord of Storms, causing trouble everywhere, and being discovered by him, will he send down a thunderbolt to kill you?" Leonard whispered softly, "I shouldn't be discovered. Look up." Leonard looked up as he was told, and the stars in the starry sky flickered, like eyes that could blink. Leonard's face was completely frozen. Everything is under the gaze of the stars. He shuddered, no longer having the joy and excitement just now. If there is such a mysterious existence representing the stars, then all his performances tonight will be under his gaze. Leonard was silent for a while, feeling heavy and depressed. He looked up and glanced at the people coming and going on the street, as well as the bustling shops and bars. He suddenly felt very cold. "Let's go have a drink first." Leonard looked at the bar next to him and walked in. The brave bar, at this moment he needed to use courage to dispel the fear in his heart. The bar is very large and spacious, and the overall style leans towards steel and tough guys. Most of the people who come here to drink are working class people, and it is rare to see anyone dressed as an aristocrat. Leonard came to the bar and asked the waiter if he had any recommended wine. He also just came to Backland and didn't know much about this big city. In order not to show his timidity, he ordered 2 types of wine recommended by the waiter, and then only ordered Southwell beer. Rather than drinking slowly in small sips, he prefers to drink in large gulps. Only by drinking half a glass or a full glass at a time can his melancholy thoughts be relieved. What the old man said just now really scared him. When you look up, you can see the stars. If the mysterious existence really sees that he is pretending to be a believer in the stars, will he directly drop a meteor and kill him? Should I go to a relatively deserted place and wait to die quietly? Otherwise, it would be bad if the meteor fell into the world and affected innocent lives. He is not so selfish that he must drag others to die with him. Should I take advantage of this time to write more poems? Even if you are no longer alive in the future, you can still leave behind a few poems that can be sung by bards. In the poem, you should deliberately describe your appearance and talents, and then write about your legendary experience of being killed by a meteor. Sure enough, for people like me, even if they die, they must die vigorously. Half an hour passed before Leonard came out of that sentimental mood. This was one of the negative effects of using sealed objects. Amplifying your own negative emotions is not suitable for use when you have death intentions. Otherwise you will not be able to resist the desire to commit suicide. The chill in his body was gradually dissipated due to drinking, and his almost frozen body finally began to warm up. This was also one of the negative effects. There is also a negative effect. Walking around is easy to encounter incredible events, which last for 24 hours. Incredible events are not necessarily bad things, but most of the sealed artifact holders died tragically due to encountering extremely horrific and unexplainable phenomena. That's why when he teleported to this nearby area, he didn't dare to go back to the church directly. Instead, he chose this nearby bar as a temporary residence. As long as the bar doesn't turn away customers, he plans to stay here until dawn tomorrow. Leonard tapped the 5 fingers of his right hand rhythmically in front of the bar. He held the handle of the wine glass with his left hand and took a sip of beer from time to time. He looked at the faces of the people in the bar one by one. He glanced around, looked away, and began to compose new poems in his mind. Compared to the role of nightmare, he preferred the previous midnight poet. At first, he felt that the midnight poet was too compatible with him, so he chose this extraordinary path. He, Leonard Mitchell, was born a poet, a great romantic poet. Have a glass of blue love. While Leonard was thinking a lot, a voice from the side attracted his attention. His eyes followed the direction of the sound. At first glance, he felt amazed, then unwilling, and finally sighed, feeling ashamed. In terms of appearance and temperament, he has always been very confident. If he wanted to, he could be on the cover of those magazines at any time. As for the overall temperament, it goes without saying that he rarely takes care of his hair, looks messy and unruly, and has a unique sense of beauty. His eyes are slightly confused and can see through the world but pretend to be unrestrained, which makes him look very vicissitudes of life. Feel. This is how he evaluates himself. Leonard Mitchell is the protagonist in the sung poem. He is the poem itself. To be close to him is to embrace the poem. But the man who appeared in front of him had blonde hair dyed like the sun, a well-proportioned and strong figure, and no faulty features. He always maintained a light smile on his face, giving people a very gentle and elegant feeling. Maybe he had been staring at someone else for a long time. That person came over in his direction, sat down near him, and said with a smile, "Friend, is this your first time here?" Leonard retracted his gaze, picked up the wine glass and said with a smile, "Am I making it obvious?" "Sort of. I'm a regular at this bar. Whether I'm a stranger or a regular customer, I can tell just by looking at him." "So that's it. This is indeed my first time here. It's a very nice bar. This is a paradise for the brave. That's why I chose this bar." When Leonard saw that the visitor had extraordinary conversational skills, was gentle and elegant, and was young, he gradually let down his guard and began to chat casually. After chatting with each other, we actually found it very interesting. When I learned that the other person also specialized in poetry, I finally couldn't help but ask for the other person's name.
Hasta Campbell is really a good name, as mysterious and elegant as his person.
The love poems written by Emperor Russell are very good, especially the one, When You Get Old. The poems are concise, affectionate, and full of romantic feelings. Leonard's words showed a bit more admiration for Emperor Russell. In his opinion, the combined talents of later poets could not compare to one Emperor Russell.
Even though he is very confident, he still knows that he is still far from the level of Emperor Russell.
Asta smiled and said, Emperor Russell is indeed a great poet. He writes both love poems and narrative poems very well. It's a pity that he can't concentrate on being a poet. This is very incompetent for a poet full of romantic colors. Leonard's eyes lit up slightly. This sentence touched his heart. He also felt that Emperor Russell became idle in his later years. He actually ran to be the governor of the Republic of Intis and wasted his limited time on such boring things. It was a great waste of his talent.
In terms of the ethics of being a qualified poet, he felt that he was much better than Emperor Russell.
For a long poem, this is a shortcoming, but for a long history, this is an inevitable result of the times. After all, Emperor Russell not only showed his talent in poetry, but also made extraordinary achievements in the field of science and technology, and he also opened the industrial age. The only regrettable thing is that he doesn't seem to be very decent in relationships between men and women, although this has always been the traditional culture of the Republic of Intis. Leonard listened to the other party talking and couldn't help asking, You seem to know a lot about the life of Emperor Russell? I am committed to studying the history and culture of the time of Emperor Russell, and I do have a deep understanding of this great man who opened a new era.
Leonard nodded and continued to chat with the other party. This time their topic shifted from Russell to poetry creation.
Leonard is still very confident in this regard. Poets who write better poems than him are not as handsome as him. And people who are younger and more handsome than him do not write poems as well as him.
Asta smiled and shook his head, saying, I'm not very good at poetry. Writing poetry requires spirituality, freedom, and unconstrainedness. Anyone can try. Leonard encouraged the other party to write a poem, and then threw out his own poem.
There was no way. When he met someone who couldn't beat him in appearance, he wanted to try to win back a game in poetry creation. Can I listen to your poem first? Asta hadn't thought of a suitable poem for the time being.
He did have a lot of beautiful poems in his mind, but who knew if Russell had gotten there first? Wouldn't it be embarrassing if they bumped into each other? Let Leonard show his talent first.
Okay. Leonard didn't force it. He thought about the second best poem he wrote, so that even if he made a fool of himself, he would have a better backup. Flying swallows fly across the vast land. Tourists walk along the Rhine, the coffee shops on the left bank are still steaming, but you have long lost the direction to return home, the whips that whip the horses have lost their hunting grounds, and the hunting dogs guarding outside the house can't wait for their owners to return. Leonard slightly opened the collar of his shirt, held a glass of Southwell beer, raised his head slightly and began to sing softly.
His voice was romantic with a strong and indissoluble sadness, as if he was letting go, and seemed to be reminiscing about something. The original playful sounds in the bar decreased a lot, and everyone turned their eyes to it. Attracted by the crowd, Leonard drank a glass of Southwell beer in one gulp, slammed the empty wooden cup heavily on the table, making a bang, and his voice became high and radical.
When Leonard finished singing, there was applause and cheers around. Several guests also ordered more than a dozen glasses of beer for Leonard. Leonard accepted them all, drank another full glass, and began to chant another of his poems. After reciting 3 poems in a row, Leonard held the glass in one hand, bent down slightly, and saluted the drinkers in front of him. Asta also applauded. Leonard's poetry level and good voice, no matter in which aspect, blasted Alger's hoarse voice and untalented poetry talent. It's so refreshing. Leonard took another big sip of Southwell beer. His face was slightly flushed, and he was in high spirits. It was obvious that he had a great time drinking tonight.
Asta, where are your poems? Leonard, who gradually recovered his mood, looked at Asta. Although he didn't think that the other party could write a better poem than himself, he was still interested in listening.
Hester thought for a moment and then sang softly. The winding tussock river, the black horse that was flying away with dust, the flash of white lightning. Hurrying, running wildly, where are you going without looking back? You actually ran into a desolate grave waiting for a miracle in your sleep. The plump body stepped over the rotten bones, the girl holding flowers in her hands. Who are you waiting for to come? His voice was very soft, as if he was sighing and regretting.